Our next speaker is a veteran of the BCE stage because she represents a company that's a key strategic partner for many of the transformation initiatives, and that's Intel. And Lynn Comp and I were just speaking backstage, and I was asking her what's the most important thing, because Intel does so many different things, and I was very happy to hear her response. She really focused right now on automation, which is, as you heard from Steve, a key priority for service providers. And because it's Intel, it's not just how you do it at scale. So please join me in welcoming Lynn Comp.
Thank you. So this morning, we're going to have a really fun time talking about some of the transformations that we're seeing across the industry. Now, one of the things that I've been passionate about ever since I came to Intel, and I've got a long history in telecommunications, is the fact that at Intel we work across so many different industries. And our objective is really taking the best of breed learnings and things that other industries have leveraged and have learned, and then helping other industries adapt and apply it in a way that's relevant in their market. Not copy exactly, but certainly what can be learned and then how can it be applied here. And I work in the Network Platforms group. So for those of you that know Sandra Rivera, I am on Sandra's staff. And today's talk is about transformation execution. And it really is your network, your services, and your business, all very, very important in terms of leveraging all of the work that we've done to date in the transformation of the network. But because I like to always kick off with something that is inspirational, because as much as I am a technical person, as much as I've been in the tech industry, the point for me and the purpose isn't the technology itself. It's about what the technology makes possible that we couldn't envision in the past. So if you could go ahead and roll the video, please.
Something amazing is about to happen. Something that will impact the lives of more people in more ways than almost anything that has ever come before. It's called the connection effect. The exponential impact of connecting billions of people and tens of billions of things. Things that, as their numbers grow, will generate extraordinary new levels of data. So much data, in fact, that putting it to use will drive a fundamental re-architecting of the technology infrastructure that supports modern life. In this data-centric world, the value and importance of the network will be multiplied on an exponential scale. As communication service providers worldwide accelerate their transformation to cloud ready, they'll be paving the way for a 5G future that will redefine the possibilities of network services from device to data center and everywhere in between. All while enhancing the value of billions of new connections where they matter most, our lives. That's the connection effect. And it's the future we're making together.
So as a mom who travels a lot, way too much, as a part of this industry, that last scene always gets me. Because for me, the things that the network makes possible has been transformational, not just for my life, but many other lives of people in this industry. So data is fueling the digital services marketplace. And one of the key things that you saw in that video, you saw the little digital bits that were being created as people went about their everyday lives. And it is part of the engine. We call it the oil of this digital services economy. But one of the challenges that it's created is a flood of the kind of traffic that maybe this industry has not necessarily focused on or optimized for over the last 20 years. And so we just had the Cisco report published on mobile and other connectivity information. And I love this report because it's partly scary and partly wonderful in terms of what's coming. And so when you look at by 2021, they say 75% of all devices that are going to be connected to the mobile network will be smart. And when you correlate that to the arrow on the left, you'll see that that's the lowest amount of data on the network. And then when you look at 40 terabytes per day, things like a connected plane. And then 99% of the traffic is going to be tied to these devices. And then that represents 50 exabytes per month just on the mobile data network alone. And so you can look at it as an opportunity, or you can look at it as a case for change. But we like to see it at Intel as an opportunity to go out and really make a difference in everyone's lives, but also in your business. So we view that the connection effect brings opportunity. It might feel like a perfect storm because there's so many transformations that are hitting all at once. You have IoT, you've got 5G, NFV, and cloud. And what's really interesting is when you have the conversations about these markets, you saw in the video, it's almost impossible to peel them apart from each other. So the devices and the network brought new services about that nobody ever envisioned. Personally, I cannot get around on my commute without an app called Waze. It's a crowdsourcing application. It would not be possible without all of the work in this industry to lay out the infrastructure that's necessary for me to be connected on my route to work. It is not possible without the network. And in fact, one of the things that I've said in many press interviews over the last few months is network is like oxygen. Many people forget how important it is until they don't have it. And so always remember that the network is so core and so key to unlocking the opportunities. A couple opportunities that we do see in 5G that are related to usage models that might not necessarily have been optimized for in the past. So massive machine-to-machine communications is one of the usage models that 3GPP and ITU is looking at in consideration for 5G. And it correlates to a data point from the Cisco report. 34% is the CAGR that is going to be reached because of the number of devices that are connecting to the network. And these are not the kinds of devices we have optimized services for already. Ultra-reliable and low latency, autonomous driving, there's a lot of press right now about this. But the one that actually turned the corner for me was enhanced mobile broadband. And there were two experiences that I had with this. One was in Korea, when I was going through downtown Seoul in rush hour traffic, watching a video, and there was almost no jitter or buffering, and I was very surprised by that. The other one is AR/VR, and I have not been a convert to AR/VR until recently. And probably age and gender has something to do with it. But for those of you that are roller coaster aficionados and live in the state of Texas, I recently had an experience that's captured by the photos there, where to make a ride more exciting, Six Flags Over Arlington retrofitted one of the roller coasters that was built in 1978 with a VR experience. You can see some of the riders getting ready to take off and experience what my two teen sons described as being in the middle of Ender's Game. And for kids, that was an immersive brand experience. There was one challenge with it, however, and that was that they couldn't participate in the game. They weren't able to shoot. And so there's a lot of opportunity in these brand experiences with AR, VR, with mobile video being delivered. But there's some changes that we could recommend, partly as a mom of boys who would definitely line up, with mom's credit card, of course, to go ahead and pay for those experiences as an opportunity. But also because the immersive brand experience has already been proven to be a business model that we all know and love. So one of the things that Intel has talked about is this need for distributed data centers across the network. And I have a background in both cloud and in telecommunications. And I get asked as many times in the cloud market, well, why don't we just have hyperscale data centers and run everything else wireless? I thought you'd be entertained by that coming out of the network industry. I also get asked a lot, is telco cloud just something that a telco runs in a data center? And Intel's position is, well, it could be that, but you could do so much more. You could have computing at the access and the edge. You can have IoT integration there. Distributed analytics. When you are in Beijing, downtown, and you have cameras that are connected and intelligent pointed at all of the cars that 22 million citizens represent. If you're sending all that data over the backhaul, one, it's expensive, and two, one of my friends in IT said it could look an awful lot like a denial of service attack on the data center. And so distributed analytics are really, really critical to send the right data over the backhaul as opposed to all of the data. The core, immersive media, is something that is increasingly popular. The AR/VR example that I gave is just one taste of it. And then in the cloud and the data center, there's some really interesting trends with the enterprise private network. And that's a fascinating opportunity for managed services. It's also a fascinating opportunity to partner with the enterprises who want to manage their own. Now, a little clarification on how Intel's leadership is brought to the market. We're not an enterprise vendor. We don't do systems. And in fact, one of the most popular questions I get overseas is, how am you going to help me with my transformation? Because you're basically a manufacturing company, which is true. But we work across industries to deliver technology leadership so that all of the industries that want to benefit from things like the economics of Moore's Law, software scalability, backwards and forwards compatibility, that's our focus, and we work across multiple industries. In fact, we collaborate with multiple end users, whether they're communications service providers, enterprise, or cloud, because everybody is in a different stage of transformation, depending on which infrastructure you're running. The other thing that we are focused on is unleashing innovation in open source and standards. And I think that open source applied correctly and understood for what it's amazing at, which is being able to leverage the collective millions of developers around the world who have ideas, who can hash out it code, because no one is going to have enough software engineers that can replicate or reinvent everything that a worldwide community can do. But one of the interesting data points is VMware, for example, is one of the gold members in the OpenStack Foundation. They're not necessarily known as an open source vendor. So I think that there's a lot that we can learn as an industry for how do you take advantage of all that innovation and that collective muscle and developer might. But then what are other companies doing to harden and bring that into product realization? And then Intel, we are all about collaborating when creating open ecosystems. So we'll talk a little bit about all of these. In terms of technology leadership, we are focused on a scalable roadmap. And there's 3 pillars that we are currently optimizing within. End-to-end packet processing, because you always have to balance performance, throughput, and power. Depending on where your box is running, where the infrastructure is placed, you're going to have different constraints. I always love putting pictures of central offices in front of people who work in the cloud market, because then they start really understanding, oh, that's why you don't have hyperscale everywhere. And then there's a number of technologies that we put underneath this that we're optimizing around. But the point is scalability. Being able to have backwards and forwards compatibility, not having to fine-tune every workload for the hardware in the moment, as if we have perfect insight into what the popular workload and applications will be and where they'll be running. So a sneak peek, we did announce a new processor family on May 4th, and there will be more announcements that will be coming out. But this is a really interesting example of cross-industry innovation and sharing. It's one of the most leap forward, the greatest leap forward for Intel platforms in 8 to 10 years. And it has innovation on multiple vectors, being able to have fabric, networking capabilities, supporting accelerators. One of the things, though, that I do want to give you an example around is something called Intel RDT. It is a telemetry feature. Resource Director Technology is what it's called. And it was launched last year in one of our platforms. And what was really fascinating about this technology is what it does, fundamentally, is helps balance the workload going in and out of the platform so that you end up having predictable responsiveness. In our industry, we call it jitter. How do you have regular, repeated response times from the platform and manage the workload going in and out so that what comes out is on a predictable interval? What was really fascinating is this particular feature was developed in the Network Platforms group by people who were focused on telecommunications. But the launch partner for the feature, who had actually put it into a solution in advance, was NASDAQ. Because what is one industry's jitter is another industry's lack of predictability on trading windows. And so it's a good example of how these technologies and how these capabilities applied in unique ways that are relevant to a specific industry can really make a difference. And then you're starting to ride on top of all of the goodness of software future-proofing. Another data point, it's up to 3.9x higher virtualization workload. Now, really quickly, drilling down into my old home turf, when I was in cloud and enterprise, my job was making sure that automation could be possible on top of a bunch of information that was coming out of the platform. Everything from power, using the server as a sensor, as well as geotagging, telemetry, and utilization. And I saw the same evolution of management and maintenance that was happening there starting to evolve here, where you're moving from reactive to proactive to smart and being able to do predictive analytics. And there's a lot of information that's in the platform already that can be leveraged to make things like service assurance that much more automated. And so there's a broad ecosystem that's starting to learn, how do I leverage all these counters and timers and features, and what do I do with the technology as applied to my market? And so you'll see it in OSS, BSS, as well as management and orchestration systems. And Intel's job is not to go make a product. We don't do the product. We support our ecosystem who are creating products and services. Our goal is to make it consumable so you know how to find those features. And then in your market, what do they do and how are they useful to you? Because what you're going to use them for in the network context, it won't be identically the same problem that you will have in cloud. So a lot of this is coming through Intel Network Builders. Now, Network Builders has over 260 members, and we have had 82 partner solutions. And this ecosystem includes software, systems integrators, all the TEMs, the OEMs, and a number of end users. And our focus is driving network transformation by making innovation and tech enablement something that's more consumable and easy to find. We had a lot of service providers asking us, can you please help me find a vendor that does X, Y, or Z? Who is optimized with the latest DPDK? And so the co-marketing, the partner catalogs, they're really soft matchmaking. And the industry education, we have Intel Network Builders University, totally free education, because we kept getting asked, how does DPDK work? Can you explain Open vSwitch? How does OpenStack and Mano work in both the cloud, and how could we apply it to our market? And instead of packaging up engineers and doing workshops, we thought it would be much more efficient to put it in a free web education. We have multiple languages now. We have a number of partner courses and collaborations that are up there. So it's not like Intel is the one who's the master of the universe and understands everything about this market. We believe that our collective ecosystem is there to help bring forth the best breed of innovation. And then to close, we've been doing a lot of end user collaboration, specifically around this transformation of the network, and then how do you bring in and apply but adapt some of the cloud learnings. And there are three key things that we've really started to observe in these collaborations that I did want to share with you. And they may be a little controversial, but hopefully they will be helpful in terms of your journey. The first one is minimizing bespoke configurations. One of the collaborations that is currently underway is involving how do you blend these practices of what cloud and network does. And one of the things that an engineering VP who works specifically with cloud noticed is there's so many different configurations for a cloud environment. Whereas if you look at the cloud service providers, they have macro SKUs. And so they're not trying to think, I can perfectly optimize a configuration for a specific workload, and I know exactly what that looks like. I'm not going to say they're Southwest and they only fly 737s, but I will give you the explanation for the icon. There's a simplification there because their focus is speed and resilience in a different way. The other thing that we've learned is match the tool to the job. When I was in cloud and enterprise, We found that as Intel IT was making its journey from legacy through private cloud through platform as a service, that there are parts of the infrastructure that do need the moral equivalent of 5 nines. However, if you're trying to have a great developer experience and encourage your in-house line of business developers to not just go put a VM on a cloud on their corporate cards, then you needed to give them an experience that was worthwhile, that was similar in nature, that gave them the same kind of APIs and speed. And so I did create a little controversy on a panel recently where I said maybe rethink 5 nines. And that was a high-level statement. It wasn't meant you don't need 5 nines anywhere. It was more start thinking about where do I really need it versus where do I want people to have that DevOps experience and match the needs of the infrastructure for the goals of the business. The last one that has been a key learning is on standardization. Now, with Intel not doing equipment, from our perspective, we think that there are multiple interoperability efforts. When we are working in standards communities, our focus is really how can we help converge so that there's some commonality, because in our perspective, we should not and are not the control point. We do believe that the service providers really can lead and be the ones that are setting direction. But when it comes to performance characterization, one thing that I've found that is very different is that the use of synthetic benchmarks as an accelerant to deciding who you would invite for RFPs is not something that's very common here. And what I've seen is that it does have the ability to shave 6 to 12 months off of procurement cycles. And it could also impact your cost. So things like open OPNFV, yardstick, are things that we're contributing to. And I put the challenge out to the industry every time that I'm talking, please come contribute. When I was in cloud, some of the service providers actually were able to direct their suppliers in a more effective manner by open sourcing some of the code that they used to test whether or not they were going to invite a supplier to bid. You as a service provider and you as a supplier have so much ability to set direction and help accelerate this move in the industry. Our ask is please contribute. We put in a start point from what we know, but we are not running a network. So please come in and be part of that community. So hopefully I have helped you be inspired instead of just thinking about the execution of the moment. And there are some key things that can be applied right now. There are some advances in terms of automation and leveraging the capabilities that are being leveraged in other industries that are in the platform. But there's a lot of opportunity there that someone is going to unlock. And personally, I believe that this industry has all of the opportunity in the world to be the ones participating in the economy, including $200 billion of new video services, as well as new mobile and new cloud services. So with that, I hope I've inspired you. Even if I've caused you debate points, please come see us at the booth. We would love to learn from you. We'd love to have the conversation and the dialogue about more of what you need to start executing and keep executing the transformation of your network. Thank you.